Does this avoid what has been called the so-called fiscal cliff beyond September, the package as announced by the Prime Minister and Treasurer?
Yeah, good afternoon, Kieran. I think it does. This is exactly what many economists have been calling for, and that is a transition or a tapering of the JobKeeper or the wage subsidy. And we've got a very good arrangement here where we've got a rapid tapering, but we've still got substantial support in place for the most affected businesses and people in our community. So I think it does avoid the sudden shock of it all ending in September. But I think we also must bear in mind that with the government projecting 2.1 million people to fall off JobKeeper in October, that there'll be a lot of businesses that aren't suddenly back to pre-COVID levels. So there will be some job losses still associated with this transition, just not as bad as they could have been.
And Warren, are the Treasury projections credible, given the mistake we saw last time, infamously saw last time?
Look, I think they are. In terms of the program itself and the way that the program, well, what it costs compared to the number of people, that's where they sort of got it wrong. I think what is open is they've actually got quite a optimistic view of the economy in here. They've got a lot of businesses no longer being 30% down, and that's really what's driving the big drop in people on JobKeeper, is that there's a recovery in there, essentially. Now, look, the government, the Prime Minister today made it quite clear that the whole thing is designed to be fit for the underlying economic circumstances. So if you're in Victoria and doing poorly, you need it. If you're in an industry that's doing poorly, you need it. If you're not, you don't need it. But the reality is the set of projections that they've given here of the big drop-off in usage of JobKeeper, I think, is quite optimistic. So I don't think they're sort of factoring any deterioration in what's going on in New South Wales right now, or indeed a worse economic outcome internationally, or something that could derail the economy.
One thing, if we look to the glass half full, if we can, for a moment, we've seen out of Oxford University this second phase of trials, very encouraging, talking about vaccine by the end of the year. If that all goes according to plan, as we hope it does, how important is that? We're already seeing a bit of a boost on the markets in terms of confidence, but the health story is so pivotal to the rest of the story, isn't it?
It's critical, and I think you're seeing that right now with what's happening in Victoria. And look, I think the New South Wales strategy may be different. They'll keep the place open even if we do get a pickup in cases. But I think we'll find then, even without restrictions, people will choose to stay at home. So, again, many economists have made this point, is that we can't get back to normal until we've got the health issue under control. And a vaccine is the magic bullet. And if that comes through, then we're really off and racing, particularly with all this government support. Interest rates at zero, a lot of funding programs around the banking system, and then, of course, all this government money. The economy could really rocket on a vaccine. And if anything, the problem will become the opposite, is how to peel all this support back. But your point is clear, that it is a health problem primarily, and we cannot expect the economy to return to normal and really grow until that's overcome.
Now let's look to Thursday, the economic statement. We had expected the JobKeeper and JobSeeker components to be included in that. The government's brought that forward. But in terms of Thursday and the overall budget numbers, what are you expecting amid reports we're going to see the largest deficit since the Second World War?
Well, I think we will see the largest deficit since the Second World War in probably just every metric you could imagine, whether it's percent of GDP or dollars. But I don't think that's the main game. I mean, the numbers are sort of almost esoteric at this stage. I think the issue here is, what's the government's policy strategy? And today marks the end of sort of phase one for me. The emergency policy position that they took initially, which was a fantastic outcome, and I think we can all agree on that, but it's been phased out. They now, I think, on Thursday need to give us some idea and give business some idea of what's the longer-term strategy. So first of all, what's the fiscal stimulus for next year as the economy starts to recover? What's the infrastructure spend? What is the investment in skills and re- and upskilling that they're talking about? That fiscal stimulus has to be clear. And then the other one is the structural reforms. What's going to turbocharge the recovery over the next 5 years? Is it a tax cut strategy? Is it an IR strategy? Is there something more that we haven't heard from them before? So I think that's what we're really looking for, is what's the government strategy for the medium term? And I think that's why they separated the two programs. I would add the big issue, I think, that hasn't been talked about a lot, but we should start to think about is what's the immigration outlook? We've taken a big hit on that with all the borders being closed, and that's going to remain. But do we get back to the previous policy? Because if we do, then businesses can look forward in the future to strong population growth. And that could be a really important factor in getting businesses investing again.
And before I let you go, Warren, I just want to get your thoughts on what the RBA governor had to say today. Were there any interesting remarks, indicators that we should take note of?
Well, I think, your report summed it up earlier that, they're going to be there. They're going to keep interest rates at zero for as long as it takes. That's their support. But that's sort of it. Monetary policy isn't going to do anything new from here on in. Interest rates at 0.25%, both the cash rate and the 3-year bond, that will stay. And the governor went to some length to say it's all about fiscal policy. It's all about the government and these policies we've seen today and we're going to see on Thursday. And he went out of his way to rebuke some of these discussions around printing money and monetising debt and so forth, this modern monetary theory. It's just not on the cards. They're not doing that. They're not doing negative interest rates. They've done essentially all they can. It's up to the government. They're going to make sure the government can be funded, and that all seems to be going well. But it's really all about fiscal policy from here.